Hello there, this is Kevin Whitworth from Love Battery and Sky Cries Mary, and you're listening to the Nothing Shocking podcast.
Want to know what's going on in the world of music? Then tune in to the Nothing Shocking podcast, a non-genre based, all ages friendly rock and roll program. Join us weekly for interviews with all your favorite rock stars from the mainstream to the underground. You can find us at nothingshocking.libsyn.com or anywhere you download podcasts.
We're putting the band back together.
The numbers all go to 11.
I'm talking about bands that rock. Led Zeppelin. What about Sabbath? AC/DC. Motorhead.
Does that mean it's louder? Isn't it any louder?
Well, it's one louder, isn't it?
We're not worthy. We're not worthy.
Why don't you just make 10 louder and make 10 be the top number and make that a little louder?
These go to 11.
I get up off the ground and raise my head. Days like this, think I should be dead. One for Satan, two for me. Let's cheat the devil, it's fun, don't you agree?
Welcome to the Nothing Shocking podcast. I'm your co-host, Jeff Antiedt, and with me in Dog Bowl Studios is
Coach Nez.
You can find the Nothing Shocking podcast on Libsyn or any podcatchers. Like our Facebook page or follow us on Twitter at No Shock Pod.
You can also find the Nothing Shocking podcast on Rock Rage Radio every Sunday morning at 7 a.m. Central Time. Our sponsor is Ragged Records, located in downtown Rock Island, Illinois, and downtown Davenport, Iowa. We'd like to thank the Hong Kong Sleepover for allowing us to use their music for our intro and bumper ending. Tonight's guest is
Kevin Whitworth of Love Battery.
and Sky Cries Mary.
Yeah.
What is he promoting?
Yeah, he's promoting the vinyl release of Confusion A Go-Go, re-release from 1999, and we talked a little bit about the re-release of 92's Dayglo.
They released that last year, correct?
Last year.
Yeah. Man, what an awesome guy.
Yeah.
Let's get to that interview, man.
All right, good night.
Good night. Kevin, welcome to the Nothing Shocking podcast. I'd like to introduce you, my co-host, Jeff Antiedt.
Kevin, thanks for joining us tonight.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Well, we're excited to finally have you on the podcast. I know we've hit some snags over this past year and a half, but you're finally on.
That's all right.
Yeah, and so Jeff and I are huge Love Battery fans.
Yeah.
Jeff
Well,
is
that's nice to hear.
Yeah, and he's the expert on Love Battery opposed to me. But anyway, let's get right down to this, is that Love Battery is anticipated re-releasing Confusion A Go-Go, July 7th. Is that correct?
It's actually out.
It is out.
I'm not sure if that is the official release date, or maybe we just got ours. I know that you can get it from their site, the Bang Records site already. So I guess I guess we don't have a hard release date unless they created one for themselves. But I'm a little out of the loop on that one.
That's what they had on their website.
Yes, I've got one in my hand right now.
Oh,
sweet.
Exciting. So, I mean, let's talk about this, the re-releasing of old material and making it new again. What was the process of getting this album re-released on vinyl, especially?
Well, there's a lot of people who are interested in vinyl these days, once again.
Yes.
And that makes bands like us ripe for these types of reissues. So we've just been fortunate to have these people court us and make this happen. These aren't major productions, of course. Well, the Dayglo one was actually fairly major, but this one's a much smaller situation. But the result is this is a much different record, if I may say, than the one it's culled from. And it is culled because because it's final, you can only have so much time permitted per side. So we had to put the axe to 4 songs, which is hard.
Okay.
But the process, that part wasn't as hard as you would actually expect. But it turns out the original recording was kind of a rush job for the mixing. I mean, from what I understand, according to Jack Endino, who was in charge of the remastering, the guitars were left was right, right was left. Some things were just up the middle, which is, something you don't usually do. They're all we loved the record as it came out, and it got great reviews, as a matter of fact, from AllMusic. They thought it was right on up there with Dayglo. So I don't want to criticize the original recording so much, but the new one, sadly short 4 songs, sounds like $1 million. I didn't know that you could do that much with the mastering process, really. I thought it was a bit more subtle, but there's a lot more distinction. The whole mix kind of crackles. And because the songs were cut and then the order switched around, it makes it into a tidy little album because, it's less than 45 minutes now, which is, the nice thing about LPs, record vinyl LPs in general. They don't go on for too long. But it's a completely different animal. So it's very, very strange. So needless to say, we're very, very happy with it. I don't think anyone else has really seen it except for me and Ron and the record company. So I don't have any idea how other people feel about that. But we'll see about that soon, I would imagine.
Well, fantastic.
Well, take us back to 1999 a little bit. By this point, Jason Finn had left and gone off to president of the United States of America, and I think you guys brought Dan Peters in from Mudhoney on drums on Confusion a Go-Go.
Yes, we did.
Can you tell a little bit about the bringing him into the band?
Well, Dan, before I had a girlfriend and got my own place, me and Dan were roommates just as Mudhoney was getting pretty big, and Steve was our our housemate as well, and they made great housemates because, as I said, they were just getting big, which means they were on tour the whole time. So my then girlfriend and I, who's now my wife, had a house to ourselves on East Lake for quite a long time, so that was kind of nice. So Dan's always been close to us. He's always been a huge Love Battery fan, and I'm not really sure how he acted. Once Jason was left and was pushed out. He couldn't be in 2 bands, so we didn't appreciate him really trying to be in 2 bands. And his head was in the clouds, looking for stardom there. And we were just looking to keep making music and putting out records. And we always had Mike Musburger, who also appears on the record on one song. He'd always been in the zeitgeist there, and in fact took over most immediately because when Jason finally was eased out. We were still touring heavily to promote Straight Free Ticket, and we needed someone to step in right away. And our record company was good enough to supply a salary for all of us, actually, but to the new drummer as well. And so Mike played drums with us on tour quite a bit, but then he's another busy drummer. To tell you the truth, I'm not quite sure. I think Dan was there. He's always there, and so we said, Dan, you want to play? Which was great because he was really great to write with because these were all songs that we wrote with him. To be honest, he wasn't really great with learning songs, so we just sort of abandoned that. And that's exactly why on the record, the reissue, and on the original, a couple of the songs actually feature Jason. One features Jason and one features Mike when they recorded, but those are from much earlier. The other 6 songs were recorded and we wrote them with Dan, and he was a joy to do that with. We've always loved his style. I guess we were lucky to find him in sort of I think that maybe it was during that time that Steve went back to college, and Mudhoney was kind of taking a little bit of a break then, I'm pretty sure, because we had a lot of time to rehearse, and then we worked in 2 separate studios. It wasn't something that we did quickly by any means. The original Confusion a Go-Go. But then after the record came out, I think he got busy again. We had another drummer who came in, Brian Nelson, who has played in a couple of cool bands here in Seattle. I think we made one ill-fated West Coast trip and broke up on the way, and that was the end at that time of Love Battery. But we were very lucky to get Dan. Boy, is he crackle on this record.
Oh, absolutely. Colorblind is my favorite track on Confusion a Go-Go. Can you talk a little bit more? Is there a story behind that song? It's such an awesome song.
It may be my favorite. That was actually, here's a funny thing, that was actually recorded during the Dayglo sessions.
Oh, cool.
So I don't know why it got left off. But it has that shimmer, that feel that we got from Egg Studios, which is just an 8-track studio. in Conrad Uno's garage in Seattle, and there's a very small space, a lot of bleed between the instruments, but somehow we were coming off our first couple of years of really playing a lot of touring a lot, playing a lot of shows, and making these songs work live. So we were used to all our amps howling at each other and playing over each other. And although that song's not really a howler, so to speak, it has that same, has that same ambience a lot of the songs that on Dayglo have. And I take it you haven't heard the newest version, which that wasn't really an overly complicated song like some of the other ones were. So that there's not a whole lot of moving parts in there. Mm-hmm. So that one, the original on that you're used to sounds pretty damn good, and that one probably changed the least in the new remaster. Just FYI. Because Jack did, even with Dayglo, which we'll get to talking about in a minute here, he didn't want to mess too much with some stuff from that period, from that recording, because whatever was happening right. We were just sort of depending on ourselves to make the right sounds, not so much the boards and mixing and all that kind of stuff like that. But thanks for saying that about Colorblind, and I'm glad that we actually did try to re-record that with each of the new drummers, but as I said before, it just didn't work out, and we decided to just go ahead and just use the original from the Dayglo days.
Oh, very good. Jeff, you got the next one?
Yeah.
Well, you guys have done a couple of reunion shows over the years, but what do you guys got in store now? Are you guys going to do any live events for any of this release?
Well, you're talking to the curmudgeon of the band here. I don't know if you're aware, but I'm also in Sky Cries Mary.
Yes,
which I have been with Jack Endino since 2017, and that is pretty much totally a studio band. Yeah. I have my own 24-track studio across the alley from here, and we work in conjunction with Jack over at the Sound House in Ballard. Roderick records stuff in New York, sends it to Jack. I send stuff to Jack, and we make albums that Trail Records keeps putting out. Yeah, mm-hmm. and that's what I've always wanted. I just really wanted to make records. I was never that thrilled about the prospect of hauling amps around and actually playing shows. I don't know what that's not very rock and roll, but I did plenty of it.
Yeah,
I did plenty of it, and there's always been a demand for us to play. But Jason was always hard to get a hold of, so that put the brakes on pretty easily right there. And we would get together and play once every 4 years, or 3 or 4 years. But it was an easy thing to do because Jason knew how to play. We all knew how to play the song, so we only had to practice once or twice, and then put on a show that was sold out. And we'd each pocket like $1,000. It was like, yeah, we can do this every once in a while. And nothing like playing sold out shows, which we never really did in what you could call our heyday.
Yeah.
We never really did then. We're doing better now in some ways. Now these guys, though, we got a new drummer. It took a while to break him in, and I didn't enjoy that. When I was in the band before, none of us had jobs. You were just in the band.
Yeah.
Now I got to work all day long. The last thing I want to do is go into someone's basement and play for a couple hours and argue about songs. Even though we get along really well, it's just something. I want to sit with the wife and smoke pot, watch the latest, installment of some serial that we're watching.
Yeah.
It's like we enjoy each other's company. The kids are gone. We're like, yeah, this is a nice life we've got going on here. I don't need to. And like I said, my outlet with Sky Cries Mary is wonderful. I mean, not only that, I get to play all the instruments on some songs, and it's just been a delight. But I've been softening in that stance a little bit. So we played a bunch of shows to support Dayglo, just about three shows, and they were all sold out, and it was terrific. But I was like, okay, that's it. But now they're offering it to us again. And I don't know if I'm divulging too much, but Ron, in the meantime, after I said, okay, and they were very nice. It was like, I'm putting my Marshall back in because another thing I get to do is I play also a lot of session work, and it's mostly country slide type stuff,
cool.
With a little Supro amp, and people call me up and I put slide guitar on stuff. That's what I've always wanted to really do. But then Ron got some news that he's got some arthritis coming. He's and doesn't know how long he can continue to play guitar effectively. So I said, okay, well, I can't say no if this could be the last hurrah for Ron. And it may not be, it turns out, because he's found some kind of stem cell therapy that may help him out in this regard. But in the end, I acquiesced to a show on July 8th coming up, which should be a hoot. It's a 16-band outdoor festival type show that we headline. Nice. I couldn't say no to that one. And then we may play a show in the fall too. I couldn't say I haven't said no to that yet. But to tell you see, Love Battery for me is like your Corvette in your yes. Ancient, beautiful, classic Corvette that sits in your garage, and you pull it out every once in a while and zip it around. It's like, it's like thrilling, but you don't want to do it every day.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
At least I don't. Like I said, I always wanted to make music by myself, and I'm sort of doing that with Sky Cries Mary, but with a band. Because the great thing is I always write music. I've always been writing music ever since the beginning. And what's really nice is I could just pull these things out of what my wife used to call my shoebox of songs, because they used to be all on 4-track tapes. Because I used to, be a world task scammer. Now I've got a 24-track digital. But I can send them to Roderick in New York, and the next thing I know, he's got lyrics on it, and it's a song that's on a record, And I just really love doing that. But the long and the short of it is we have a great drummer now. So we have the show on July 8th coming up. We got together to practice last week, and it was just like better than any time we've ever played. And we were just like, oh, we don't really need to practice. So with that being in there, that softens me up a lot, because I can show up to a show and play. I mean, come on, right? So I don't want to go 3 nights a week over to Ron. Ron has a beautiful house, by the way. It's not right down the street from me, with a beautiful room to practice. And we're older now. Or at this point, either you've died, or or you've done well, pretty much, And Ron has got a very nice house down there. I've got a nice place too. So it's a very fun thing. And I was, the irony is, when we went and practiced that one time, I was like, wait, really? We're not going to practice anymore? Now I want to. Yeah, because, I got my amp out of the closet. I got it for these shows. I got it hot rodded and everything. This guy hot rodded it for me. It's like, I might want to drive that Corvette a little bit more before it goes back in the garage this time.
Very
but
good.
At the same time, I like the exclusivity that we used to have. I don't want to water things down. Although we do have what can be considered new product. And on top of that, we have 4 new songs that we never got to record that I find to be every bit as good as some of our best stuff. And so I said, yeah, no matter what with the live thing, we're just kind of waiting to see what's happening with Ron's fingers. He has some kind of procedure near the end of July, so we'll see about that. But there's a plan for us to go back into the studio and record 4 songs and put out a new EP. And then that's a whole different world, because those will be 4 brand new songs. And, there'll be an obligation, I would imagine, on some sort, even though we don't care about sales anymore, and we never really did. There will be an obligation for us to support it in some way, So it might be a little bit before 4 years before we play again.
Oh, you got us excited, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have 4 great songs that they're from the old days, but we just never got launched them. But we pulled out all the old tapes and went, yeah, those are really great songs. And if you think so, 10 years later, then they probably are great songs. And like I said, our drummer is just terrific, and for us, he's half our age. You got a 30-year-old drummer. It's like
very good.
So the engine is got a good engine going there. The battery's charged in that sense.
Well, you had mentioned the slide guitar. I had that written down as a question to ask you, because I remember I think Straight Freak Ticket had a couple of tracks you played slide guitar on. Can you talk more about your slide guitar playing?
Well, I got slide guitar all over all of the records.
Yeah.
Yeah, usually at least half of every record, I would imagine. That's a funny story. The slide guitar, obviously, like many of us, loved the Stones and other slide-oriented stuff. But when I was learning how to play, I grew up in the woods in New Hampshire. I had no one to play around with. I had no one to observe. I think the first time I saw someone play guitar up close live was because I'd been to concerts at Boston Garden, of course, to see Jethro Tull, which is things like that. But it was at my prom. I was like, I ignored the girl I was with and just stared at the guitar player the whole time to pick up what I used to be kind of evil then. When I used to see a guitar player, I used to point at him and go, I'm going to get you. I'm going to get you. And I could not figure out what made the slide type sound. And I was always trying to approximate it with my fingers. And then when I was, playing in college, my first year there were a lot of musicians in the college I went to. It turned out that it was a jazz school. I didn't know it. I went there for writing, to be an English teacher, and I ended up, meeting a lot of musicians and jazz musicians, and that's where it turned a corner for me. I learned all about jazz then. I left all the rock stuff behind, but as far as slide was concerned, I was trying to do my slide thing, and this guy just handed me one and said, yeah, you should try this. and I got it right away. I got it right away. And I always had one around, but I didn't really have much use for it. And I didn't use it in the band I was in before Love Battery at all. I used it on all my 4-track stuff. It's all over my 4-track stuff that I did at the time. But Ron is a very loud guitar player, very, very loud. And when the first days we started playing together, I did not have control over my equipment. I was always using bar amps. I had a guitar that someone had lent me that I'd gotten used to over the years, that Mustang someone lent me back before they were fashionable, the Mustang I play on 90% of everything on Love Battery. And I just said, I can't cut through his heavy sound. It's just can't find a way to do it. And then I just picked up the slide, and it cut right through. And that's when I decided I would keep that as part of my bag of tricks, which I do consider that. I consider the slide like an effect. Unlike most guitar players, I don't use many pedals, just a wah-wah and a little bit of reverb and the slide sometimes, because I think the slide is otherworldly, When you play it the right way, it's like a time-shifting thing. You can be in front of the beat and back of the beat. You can be all around the beat. I think it's just fascinating, slide guitar playing. And most people, they play it differently. Everyone tunes it to an open chord and plays it like I don't do that. It's just FYI. I play in standard, and you got to learn how. The trick to that is, you can only play 2 or 3 strings at a time along the neck. And you got to be able to cuff it with your right hand, because when you're in a standard tuning and not an open one, there are bum notes everywhere that can pop out. And you got to be able to choke them with your right hand, right at the saddle. And that's my shtick. That's how I learned how to do that. I believe Mick Taylor did some of that too, because you want to be able to play leads, regular leads, and chord as well as play slide all at once. So that's why because when I first found out about open tunings, I was just like, oh my God, my dog could play this. It's just, it doesn't matter where you go, what you do, everything sounds good. Everything's a chord, And I still actually stay away from those because it's just too easy. But I do, that colorblind, that's all standard tuning, just a couple of strings, but you got to block the ones that might ring out bad. But thanks for asking about that. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, for
sure. But yeah, I consider myself a slide player, really. Like I said, there's a lot of slide guitar playing. And I don't know if you read the review from All Music about, did you read that?
No.
For Confusion?
No, we didn't.
No, but I'll
look at it. Yeah, it's on the liner notes for the new record, too, cool. Actually. And it says... some something about flights of fancy, including some of the best slide guitar work and all alternative rock.
Nice, very nice.
Yeah, I had to read that. I had to read that to my father. But although my parents were very supportive of my guitar playing, I don't try to pay attention to compliments. It's better to pay attention to criticism than compliments. But I put that one feather in my hat.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I wanted to bring this back to Confusion a Go-Go. It's being released on Bang Records this time around, but the re-release of Dayglo back in September was released on Jackpot Records. So can you kind of give us a little bit of a synopsis on why the different changing of a record label for these two re-releases?
Well, these aren't, we don't sign contracts for these people who do re-releases. In fact, all this stuff, Confusion A Go-Go is owned by CZ, Daniel's company. But we are still, I don't know what the word to use is, we are bound to Sub Pop still.
Okay.
We are still indentured servants to Sub Pop. So they own all that stuff. And so outside of us, now Jackpot only does reissues. So they decide, that's a great record. Let's approach the label that owns it. In other words, we had nothing to do with it.
Okay.
From what I understand, Steve Turner actually he lives in Portland now, and Steve Turner hangs out at the shop all the time, and it had something to do with us coming up in discussion with him. And so they called up Sub Pop. I guess it took a little while to get a response, but so it's licensed. That's licensed from Sub Pop, who still owns Dayglo, but they didn't care about it. And we got a hefty little Jackpot sent us $1,000 each, and then another $1,000 later, and it's like, okay, this is just great. And we went down and played their shop. Now, Bang is a different thing. I'm not really. I wish I had more info on that. Now, they're a much smaller thing, and they're like a punk rock label in the Basque country of Spain. And I think they just reached out to Ron, and I think Ron even actually financed a bit of it, or at least paid for some of the product that we received to sell on our own. I think they put it on. I think they did all this stuff actually, but I think we just had to pay for our own records. That wasn't the case with Dayglo. That's like a much bigger operation. Yeah,
absolutely.
Jackpot's is a big operation, and Bang is not. They're just a little punk rock label, and we're only getting 500 records out of that one too. And it's a limited release, whereas I don't think Jackpot's is limited. I think they'll keep making it as needed. So we just got Jack to, once again, we already had him under our thumb for the Dayglo sessions, and I'm also in a band with Jack. So we keep him close to the vest, and he had to put a lot of work into the Confusion records. So we owe him a lot for that.
Absolutely. So I wanted to bring up the Dayglo album in its original release. It's one of those albums from the early '90s that it cultivated the Seattle sound and an underground following as well. I guess when the band was finishing the original Dayglo tracks, were you guys completely satisfied with the end product? And did you know that you guys were kind of onto something when you released this album?
Well, not really, because we were just really busy touring. We recorded 3 songs, I believe, and then went on tour and came back and recorded the rest, as I recall. So it was over a period of like 6 or 7 months. So, we just record stuff, and when it came out, we didn't really have time to sit around the house listening to it. I mean, we spent a lot of time mixing that one. We used to, like a lot of people do, you listen in the studio, you make a cassette, you go out to the car, drive around, see how it sounds like that, check it out in your headphones, we're good at that kind of stuff. Unlike Far Gone, we're not talking about that tonight, but we didn't get a chance to play with Far Gone. We just trusted the big-time producer to mix that right, and that was a mistake. But we knew we had a good thing. We didn't know how well it would go, but we never considered ourselves a commercial band. We wanted to be really bad, but we knew we weren't. That wasn't happening. We knew that we were just so happy that we were doing it at all. I mean, when Between the Eyes came out, on the strength of just the single, we got a booking agent, and we were able to go, despite what I said earlier about not liking to play live shows. Back then, that was a huge thrill. On the strength of the single, we got Peter Davis out of Minneapolis, who did a lot of Amphetamine Reptile bands at the time, who took a big shine to us, got us $100 and a case of beer every night across the country, and we went out. We had no following. We got some airplay on KEXP, what was then KCMU. And we had a great, we did well in Seattle, But there was nobody at the first shows that we went to. But one clue we liked what we were doing. But one clue that we had was that even though the clubs were empty on those first tours in the middle of Nebraska on a Tuesday night, was that the bar staff who weren't getting paid basically that night would be standing on the bars, asking for encores when there was no one in the building, and these people see bands every single night, every night, and we know, oh my God, you got the bar staff like doing this. It's like we're not wrong. This is good stuff we got going. And back then, word of mouth meant a lot. And then because we never got promoted by Sub Pop, as you know, as you probably know, ever, never. They just were. They thought that the fact, and they were right. The fact that they deigned to put out our records should be good enough. And what facilitated those tours was the fact that they let us have a van. So I don't want to speak ill of them at all. We wouldn't have any of this without them. But they put nothing into it. Although they did, I'll back up on that too. During the Dayglo period when we were touring, and that was the period when they were out of money. That they were stiffing everyone, bouncing checks. What part of bank? Well, I forget what their shirt said. What part of broke? Don't you understand? we were one of two bands, I believe, in Mudhoney, who were drawing a salary to pay our rent. So once again, I can't put them down too much, but they did not, in their own words, consider us, and I agree with them, to be a grunge band. They didn't think that we fit that Tad, Nirvana, Mudhoney, that grouping, and I agree 100% with that. But that's what they were pushing, that's what they were selling, and they did a damn good job of it. Bless their little souls. And but we didn't fit into that. Around the edges. In fact, I love the label better now than I did then because I thought they were a little bit, monochromatic at the time. But now they do all kinds of world stuff and everything. Yeah. I think they're really great. But they should still show zero, even though we're all friends, they show zero interest. Even though I believe Dayglo has done very well. And we still would like to talk to them about re-releasing and remixing and remastering Far Gone, the third record. Yeah. And all, I don't know how you guys feel about it. We cringed when we first heard that on the road. We thought that was a rough mix. Then we thought our van speaker something was wrong with it. And there's some weird skate kids who love it, that mix that way, that muddy mix. But I can't even listen to it. But the irony is, we think that's the best record for our songs. So a lot of our live shows feature songs from that record, from Far Gone. Split in Two, things like that. Head of Ringo, I think is one of our best songs, but it sounds like crap on that record. But live, it sounds like $1 million. So we're thinking about doing that too. And then there are some outtakes from Confusion a Go-Go that don't have any lyrics on them, and we are thinking about putting those out too. So there's lots of stuff that's happening in that area. But I think I trailed off of what your original question was there, though.
That's okay.
You're doing great.
You did great. Jeff, you got the next one?
Well, yeah, I was just gonna say that "Foot" was my favorite song off of Dayglo. What was your favorite track?
Mine?
Yeah.
Off of Dayglo?
Yeah.
That's a really hard one to say. Because I'm not generally, well, I guess I can do that. If you ask me, like, who's my favorite band, what's my favorite author, I can't do that kind of stuff. But I suppose I can think about what my favorite song on Dayglo would be. I mean, but then again, you kind of like the babies that you wrote.
Oh, yeah.
So 23 Modern Stories is mine. Ron wrote the words. I wrote the music. That's something that came off a 4-track. Actually, that's the only song I wrote on that record. So I kind of like that one because it captures a certain kind of feeling, But, I mean, I think I got to go. I'm trying to run them through my head. There's so many good songs. I mean, Damaged, probably, because that's a very personal song for Ron. Yeah. And I know the people he's talking about in the song. It's like Lisa says, all those people, they're all dead. And it's this to him. A lot of his writing I find very interesting because sometimes it's a lot of non sequiturs, but that means that you can make it mean whatever it is you want it to mean. It's very colorful, and it helps me to play guitar for some reason. And so but that song is not nebulous in any way. That is story song. He's talking about these people, and they're talking about who fell into the orbit of doing heroin and things like that, and what people's plans were at that early time in their lives. It's definitely something. And then I get to play some really nice slide guitar on it too. Who can argue with out of focus, though, right?
Absolutely.
Sometimes I really, don't ask me. That album's pretty good.
It's damn good.
Oh yeah,
it's damn good.
See Your Mind is really wild. Once again, I get to play a lot of slide on that one. Sometimes, which is a little bit overlooked, is a nice song too, because Ron is once again being very bearing his heart about. We don't always know. What's really funny about is that he used to always want us to sing backups because he had rightly said that like any band that has backups is automatically 100 times better than one that doesn't. You just get a couple more people shouting into the microphones and it adds a whole bunch more. But he wouldn't tell us what his lyrics were. And he would say, "It doesn't matter. Just make up something and sing it in tune," which I always thought was funny. But on the new Confusion a Go-Go, his lyrics are printed out on the sleeve. That's a first.
Yeah.
And I was reading through them. It's like, oh, that's what he's saying. It's even better. Actually, the printed out version is better than what I thought. But yeah, I've been really moved by his lyrics. Really makes it easy for me to be colorful with my guitar. Because I'm basically chasing his lyrics around. It's a great position to be able to be in a band. I always consider it like a shortstop. I can fill in any gaps that I see coming up. I can play a lead here, or I can play heavy rhythm here. Wherever I think songs where it's getting weak, I can shore it up. And it's just it's been just a great thing for me. It's funny, when I first started playing in a band, as I said before, I've always enjoyed playing by myself. And I always had a 4-track in my room. And we had a band house in Seattle, and there were bands that practiced there. And the guitar player for this particular band that was practicing at our house, that was made up by some people who lived in the house, had to leave for some reason. And they came up and knocked on my door and said, "You should be in a band." And I said, I don't think so. And then I said, "Can I play whatever I want?" I said, "Can I play Mixolydian scales over everything?" And they said, "You can play whatever you want." And those were the magic words. And ever since then, I've been playing whatever I want. Even when we went for the majors, so we played on the majors, where you hear these horror stories about them putting their finger in every pie that you make, and trying to mess with everything. They never messed with me and Ron, never. They just said, you guys just keep doing. In fact, we did a lot of pre-production in New York City for Far Gone, actually. 3 weeks of pre-production. Me and Ron just watched the porno on they had on free channels in New York, right next to the the transit authority. We had a studio down there. They took Ron and Bruce, who was new to the bass, so that was important. And they would practice, and me and Ron would just sit in the room, and then even when we were recording the record, people were like, "You guys, don't change a thing. Just keep doing what you're doing." So I've always had it really great in that area. And Ron's been my biggest fan all along. So, that's great. I mean, how that all, I don't know if you know how that all started, but Ron had already been famous with, at least locally, with Room 9.
Yeah.
When I moved here, he was on the cover of The Rocket along with Mark Arm, who was just then starting out, Mudhoney, and Carla Torgensen, who was the Walkabouts. He was on the cover. I had never met him. He was like, he was. I didn't know at the time that was just because he was really wasted all the time. I was really stoned. I thought he was standoffish. No, he was just zonked. Jason ran into him at a party, and Room 9 had broken up. He didn't like the drummer, I guess is what was going on. That was the end of that. But he mentioned to Ron Ron mentioned to Jason that he was looking to start something new, and he needed a drummer and a bass player, and this time he wanted to have another guitar player in the band. He'd done all the guitar for Room 9, and Jason said, "Well, my roommates," and I had been in a band that had some success with Jason. They're called Rodeo. We got some good radio airplay here, but that fell apart too. He said, "Well, I live with a bass player and a guitar player," and the next day Ron rolled his amp. He turned out he only lived a block away. I rolled his amp up the hill on a Sunday, and we had a place where we were able to practice up in a very nice, huge house where we could practice up, not in the basement, but right up in the living room where you could look out and see stuff. Our neighbors liked how we played, so they never complained, even in the middle of the day on a Sunday. And Ron had 5 songs, and I had Highway of Souls, and that's your first record.
Yeah,
that was it. But we went and played our first. We had one show where we were billed as Battery Acid. We were all into the scratch acid. I don't know where the battery came from. And then our first show was Love Battery. There was a line down the block, and Jonathan came up, shook my hand, and said, "You want to put out a single?" And that was that.
Nice,
magical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, we never went anywhere, but it was nice.
We are running close to our allotted time here, but I got one more question for you, and then we'll leave you alone for the evening. So I asked this question to all of our guests: the mystery of rock and roll, the dawning of the internet and social media has taken away the mystery of rock and roll. There's no mystery to it. There's no Kiss. There's no legend of Led Zeppelin anymore. Everybody knows everybody else's business now. But for you, the musician and the artist, as a whole, and the fan, what do you prefer? This new age of accessibility? Because if we didn't have the internet, we wouldn't be doing this with you tonight. Or do you miss that mystery and mystique?
No, I don't, and I must differ with you now. I'm not sure if there was any mystery for me. With Led Zeppelin, I mean, love them, all that kind of stuff, but it all seemed pretty much what I expected all the way along. I know things are completely different now, but I think the accessibility thing is terrific. That anybody can make music first, and then number 2, find a way to distribute it without these onerous record labels. I mean, they've been sucking people dry forever. I have a little bit of a different background. For one thing, I'm African American, and I grew up in a rich, music is a big part of everyone's lives. But my relatives were also musicians. Not my parents, but like my uncles and things like that. They were in the biz, and I was very well steeped in their knowledge of how things go. And it was no different in the 30s and 40s than it was through the 60s and 70s and 80s, and even up through us. I mean, we got basically. Well, we got a shaft but the one of the things that Sub Pop did do to us, which was terrible, but was a typical record company thing to do that they've been doing since Little Richard, was still washing dishes when he heard Tutti Frutti on the radio. We were all set to sign with Polygram when their lawyer informed us that we actually owed them another album. Which we did not, because they had released. They were saying that the first one, Between the Eyes, which had first been released as an EP, yes, it's true, but that was on Tupelo. It was re-released on Sub Pop with 3 extra songs. We were getting an album royalty for it, which technically means it's an album, and we had delivered 3 albums, that, Dayglo, and Far Gone. But it would have taken a year in the courts for them to get for us to prevail. So instead, they took part of our advance and a couple points on our new record. But we didn't blame them for that. We blamed our attorney, our high-priced Beverly Hills attorney, who was supposed to spot stuff like that. Yeah. But now kids don't have to deal with these record companies so much. They're still there, and if you want to go worldwide, you still kind of need them. But and the fact that the pandemic taught us how to make records without having to be in the same room.
Yes,
I think that's great. I mean, of course, there's magic to what they did, what Led Zeppelin did, and people like that. Or anytime you hear something really great, but not to put myself in the same court. I feel the same kind of magic sense hearing Whole Lot of Love as I do when I hear Out of Focus. Something was going right in that room that day, and that magic's never going to go away. Never. So that's the magic that I see from, as you asked me, as a musician. I see it from that side. And even when I was a young star worshiper, I always kind of knew that it was an amalgam of what was going on with these people. And then circumstances would float some people to the top and some people not. Even then, I knew some people who deserved to make it big weren't going to, or some of my favorite people weren't as big as Led Zeppelin. Or the Beatles, or I'm a child of the '60s. I'm going to be 62 years old here, and I appreciated those bands as much as everybody, but now it's easier to go back and listen to them. Now I feel like they're drained of magic because it's like, oh, I know how he did that. But that's not really true because because what's great is if you're aware of KEXP here in Seattle, which has been in our corner, even though we didn't have Sub Pop, we had KEXP. They're still in our corner. They still just last Saturday, I get on Facebook people say, maybe you saw it. It says, "Got the car, heard you on the radio today." A record that came out 30 years ago. They're still playing on KEXP when they have all that new music they have to get to. I can't imagine how, because they're non-commercial, and they just play new music all day long. I listen to KXP all the time and hear all kinds of new great things. So I see that new magic too. People who say there's nothing new coming out, that's just ridiculous. I'm sure you guys know.
Yeah, I see.
There's just so much to listen to, but they will occasionally pop in something. That's how creative they are. They'll pop in something out of the blue, a Duran Duran song or something, in between all these new things, and you can hear that. No, that magic, it's the same magic. It's all the same. A good song is a good song. It doesn't matter how you get there.
Yeah.
And they're not afraid to remind you of that. Just stick in our old song. We might as well be Led Zeppelin at this point. We're closer in age to them than we are to Wet Leg, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're running out of our allotted time for the evening.
All right.
Is there
all right.
Is there anything that we left off tonight that you would like to plug or promote?
No. Well, I think I got everything in there. Actually, it seems like I blathered too long. I got to say, I messed up your timing. I thought this was going to be. I forgot that you were in Central Time. I thought Mountain. I got my timing mixed up.
Oh yeah.
So normally I have a few drinks under my belt before I do an interview. It's probably best that I didn't this time. And a good thing that my guy who's working on my washing machines at the building across the wall isn't bothering me. So that was nice. I have not been bothered while we talked.
Oh,
so
fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for getting in touch with me.
Oh, man, for sure. So this is how things are going to work out. We're about 3 weeks behind on our episodes, but once it's ready to go, Jeff, the editing wizard over here, will get it all cleaned up, and we'll send it to you. And please share it wherever you can on social media if you could. That'd be great.
Oh, I will. I think you've been seeing that I'm kind of a monster on social media.
Yeah, you do a great job.
I'm a shameless self-promoter. That's why I'm on Facebook all the time, because I post a bunch of political stuff and then I slip in love battery stuff or Sky Cries Mary stuff, so it doesn't seem like
that works.
That's the only reason why I'm on there.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, we really appreciate you coming on.
Thanks, Kevin.
Been very
Hey,
awesome
thanks for contacting me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
We'll talk to you in 3 weeks.
Okay.
Take care.
Okay. All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
says their last goodbyes. Move to the sunshine, fight the grip of nights. If they ever take from you, then you plug out